Good morning, students. Today's session is for your third HR specialization, that is for Human Resource Development Principles and Practices. In our last class, we discussed the need and importance of training. And today we will discuss the objectives of training and steps in training program. So before starting today's concept, I want to remind you what is training. So training is what training we can say that it is a procedure of imparting new skills and knowledge to a human resources so that the person or the human resources can able to work uh, well with his or her job, and the person can able to accomplish his task in a most desired way. So training we can say that it is a method of imparting new skills or providing new skills and knowledge to a human resources. Generally, training bridges or fulfills the gap between whatever the skills the organization require and what skills the human resources having. Means if the organization wants more skills for performing a particular task, and it is identified by the organization that if the human resources having lack of skills or having some deficiencies of skills, then organization plans to provide a suitable training program to our human resources so that whatever the skills the organization require that can be fulfilled. So training helps the organization to fulfill the gap between the skill between whatever the skills the organization require and what skills the organization's employees having. Generally, training is for short period of time and it is only for a particular task only, or it is for a specific purpose only. Generally, training is not only provided to a new entrant or a newly joined employee or newly appointed employee, but also it is provided to a existing human resources also. Means when a new entrant or a new employee joined in an organization, then the person are not able to understand the organization's work culture, and the persons are not able to adjust himself or herself with the organizational environment. So to making him or her more comfortable with the organizational environment, with the organizational culture, and to provide some practical knowledge related to the job, the organization provides a training program to the newly appointed employee. And it is not only important, or it is not only provided to the newly appointed employee, but also it is required or it is provided to the existing human resources of an organization. When the training program or when the training is provided to existing human resources of an organization, when the organization identified that the person having some skill lacunas, some skill deficiencies, means that the person are not able to accomplish his or her task in a most effective way, or directly we can say that the person are not if the person are not able to meet his or her standard, then the organization identifies the areas of lacunas or the areas of skill deficiencies, and organization plan for providing training to the existing human resources so the person can able to work well with his or her job and can able to accomplish his task in a most desired and effective manner. So training fulfills the gap between whatever the skills the organization require and what skills the employees having. And training is the most important aspect of here important aspect or important function of human resource management, because training enhances the person's skills, the person's potentialities, the person's capabilities, so the person can able to meet the organizational challenges, can able to meet the requirement of present or future job. So this is all about the concept of training. Today we are going to discuss another topic of training, that is objectives of training and steps in training program. First we will discuss the objectives of training. So objectives means what? Objectives we can say it is the main intention of training. Means what is the reason for providing training to our human resources. So what are the objective of training? Let me discuss one by one in detail. First objective of training is that to impart basic knowledge to new entrant, which help them to know the policies, procedures, and rules related to his job. I told you that organization provides a training program to a newly joined or newly appointed employee, because when a new employee entered into an organization, the person or that employee doesn't have any ideas related to organizational work, organization's work culture and organization's environment. So it is difficult for them to, or it is difficult for the newly joined or newly appointed employee to adjust himself or herself with the organizational culture, and he may not able to cope himself or herself with the organizational environment. So making himself or herself more comfortable with the organizational culture, with the organizational environment, it is required by the organization to provide some training program to the newly entrant or to the newly appointed employee. And when the new person entered into an organization, the person doesn't have any ideas related to organization's policies, organization's procedures and rules. Means the person doesn't have any practical idea related to performing a particular task. So to making the person more comfortable with the organizational task or with the assigned task, organization provides training to the human resources. And for making comfortable with the organization culture, organization provides training to the human resources, or by providing the knowledge, or for providing knowledge related to the company's policies, company's procedures and rules, organization provides training. So the trainer explains the company's policies, the company's procedures and the company's rules to the new entrant or newly appointed employee, so that the new human resources or newly appointed employee can able to make himself or herself more comfortable with the organizational task, with the organizational culture. So training's main intention is to provide basic knowledge to the new entrant, which help them to know the company's policies, procedures and rules related to the job. And after getting training, the person, means the newly appointed person, employee, can able to work more comfortably with the organizational task. Second objectives of training is to provide plans, objectives and programs of the enterprise to the employees. So whatever the organization plans, whatever the objectives, whatever the strategy organization are going to adopt in near future, that things can be imparted to the human resources through training. Means whatever the programs, whatever the plans organization prepare or top management prepares, whether the plans and programs that can be imparted to the employees through training. So for performing a particular task, whatever the skill is required, that can be provided to the human resources through training. And after that, whatever the plans, whatever the programs of the organization, that can be provided to the human resources through training. And whatever the strategies organization will adopt in near future for performing in those strategy or achieving the organizational objectives, what skills, what knowledge is required by the human resources, that also provided through training. So second intention of training is to provide plans, objectives, programs of the enterprise to the human resources. Means whatever the strategy the organization will adopt in near future, and accordingly what the plans are prepared in different sections, in different departments, and what programs are prepared by the top management, that can be communicated to the employees through training. Or for achieving those strategies, or for working comfortably with those strategies, whatever the skills, whatever the knowledge required by human resources, that can be provided through training by the trainer, so that the person can able to sharpen their skills and potentialities, and the person can able to meet the organizational requirement and can able to make himself or herself perfect to meet with the organizational strategies requirement. Next objective of training is to give knowledge about new and innovative techniques of work performance. If the organization identifies better and new method for performing the task, then that can be provided or that can be imparted to the human resources through training. Means in training, the trainer explains the method of performance, the method of work performance, and after that the trainer also provides After that, the trainer also provides the skills and the knowledge required to perform in this method, so that the person can able to make himself or herself more comfortable with the latest technique or latest techniques or work procedure, and the person can able to accomplish everything in a most desired way. So its main intention is to give knowledge about new and innovative technique of work performance. Whatever new and whatever the innovative techniques identified by the top management of the organization, that can be imparted to the human resources through training, because this innovation or this latest technique helps the organization to achieve its objective in a most economic way, in a most effective and efficient way, and the employees should have to work on these innovative and new techniques. But these techniques may not provide a comfortability to the human resources. So for making the human resources more comfortable with the new and latest technique, organization provides some training to the human resources. Next objective of training is to raise the level of morale, work spirit, and work culture among employees. Training enhances the person's skills, the person's comfortability, and the person's what potentialities, and it also creates the confidence. It also enhances the confidence of human resources. And after getting training, the person are able to work well with his or her job, and can able to accomplish everything in a most effective and efficient way. So the person feels job satisfaction. In training, the organization able to create a positive attitude within a human resources, and a confidence also create within a human resources, because in training the trainer imparts all required knowledge, all required skill to a human resources, and by getting this thing, the person can able to get ideas about the performance of the task, so that the person can able to accomplish everything in a step by step manner. That enhances the person's confidence, that enhances the person's job satisfaction, and that ultimately leads to improvement of the person's morale, person's moral, and person's loyalty and dedication towards the organization. If the person is satisfied with the organization, if the persons are dedicated to the organization, then within an organization the conflict can be minimized, and there is a chance of maintaining peace and harmony, so that the organization's work culture is improved, and the work can be done in a most coordinated and cooperative manner. Next objective of training is to enhance potentialities for career development of employees. This is the main intention, main motive of training, that is to enhance the potentialities for career development of employees. So for developing the career of a human resources, means for acquiring the career opportunities that is available to the human resources, training is most important. What training will do for enhancing the opportunities, enhancing the potentialities of a human resources? In training, the trainer imparts the required skills, the required knowledge to a human resources. Training's main intention is to fill the gap between the skills whatever the organization require, and what skills the human resource having. So training enhances the person's skills, the person's abilities, and the person's potentialities. And after getting training, the person able to sharpen their knowledge, sharpen their capabilities, and the person acquire varieties knowledge related to different aspects. So that helps the persons to acquire more opportunities, more career opportunities that is available to him within a organization. So that by adopting this thing, by getting various knowledge related to different aspects, the human resource can able to sharpen their capabilities and able to grasp more opportunities, and the person can move towards, and the person can move towards the growth and prosperity. Means the person can cross one more stage in his or her life. Next objective of training is to develop cordial labor management relations. So every organization want to minimize the conflict that arises between the human resources and with the organization. And every organization want to maintain a peace and harmony within the organization, and that can be possible through training enhances the person's confidence, and training enhances the person's skills, potentialities, and after providing training, the person's confidence is enhanced, and the person can able to acquire more knowledge related to different fields, and training helps to build a positive attitude within a human resources. So after getting training, the person can behave in a positive manner with the organization and with other employees of the organization. So that helps the organization to maintain a harmony, maintain a peace inside the organization, and that helps to develop a cordial relationship with the organization and its employees. Next objective of training is to improve productivity of the workers and the organization. The ultimate objective of training is to improve the productivity of workers and the organization. So by providing training, the trainer imparts the required skills, the required knowledge to our human resources, so that fulfills the gap that arises between the skills the organization require, or the skills the human resources having. So in training, the person's skills, knowledge, abilities is enhanced, and by applying these developed skills, the worker able to improve his or her productivity. And if the person is able to improve his or her productivity, then ultimately organization's productivity is also improved. Next one is to reduce number of accidents by providing a safety training to workers. In training, the trainer explains how to handle the machines, how to operate the machine, so that the person or the employees of the organization can able to prevent themselves from the accidents, and they can less prone to accident area. So training reduces the accidents by providing safety training. To make the worker handle material, machines, and equipment efficiently. Next objective of training is to provide required knowledge, required skills to our human resources about handling of the machines, equipments, and other resources, so that without any wastage of any resources, without any wastage of time, the person can able to produce anything, the person can able to accomplish his or her task. Next objective of training is to equip the employee to meet the changing requirement of the job and the organization. Training imparts required skills to our human resources. It enhances the person's inner potentialities, so that the person can able to meet the organizational requirement, meet the changing requirement of the job and the organization, and it makes the human resources perfect to meet the future challenges of the organizations also. To create a pool of well-trained, capable, and loyal employees at all levels. Training creates confidence within a human resource. It creates a positive attitude within a human resource, so that the person are dedicated, loyal to the organization, because a job satisfaction is created within themselves. So the persons are satisfied with the organization, and they are loyal, dedicated to the organization. Last objective of training is to meet the challenges given by new developments in science and technology. So nowadays the technology changes in a continuous manner, in a rapid manner. So if there is new or latest technology found, then the organization should have to implement that one, so that organization has to implement that technology, so that the organization can able to meet the global challenges and global changes. So for making the human resources more comfortable with the latest technology, or the latest technology that is implemented by the organization required to provide some training to the human resources. In the training program, the trainer imparts required skills to operate well with the latest technology, so the human resources can able to well accommodate with the latest technology, and can able to work well with such technology. So this is all about the objectives of training. Next we will discuss the steps in training program. So training program should be arranged in a systematic manner. So in the what are the purpose, what are the objectives of training program that can be imparted to the trainee in a systematic manner within a less period of time. So for providing the training program in a systematic manner or in a scientific manner, the trainer should have to proceed in a step by step manner. So the trainer or the training program involves number of steps, and the trainer should have to follow these steps. Through these steps, the trainer should have to proceed. First one is the identification of training need. Second one is the setting training objective, designing the training method, administration of training program. Last one is the evaluation of training program. So there are 5 steps involved in training program. So the trainer should have to proceed by adopting these steps in a systematic manner. First steps in training program, that is identification of training needs. So when the organization takes various steps to providing a training program or arranging a training program for the human resources, first it starts with identification of training needs. Training program or training programs arrangement begins with identification of training needs. So what is the meaning of identification of training needs, or in first step what the organization will do? So in first step, the organization identifies the training needs, the training requirements of human resources. Means when the organization provide training to a human resources, when it finds that the person having some skill lacuna, some deficiencies of skills, then at that situation organization plans to provide some training program to the human resources. So first it starts with identifying the training needs of a human resources. Means it identifies in which area the person's having some skill lacunas, the person having some skill deficiencies. So to fulfill these deficiencies, organization plan for providing training program or plan for arranging training program for the human resources. So different human resources having different skill lacunas, different skill deficiencies. So first and for every human resources, same type of training program cannot be arranged, because different person having different skill lacunas, different skill deficiencies. So first the organization identifies what the skill lacunas, the deficiencies, skill deficiencies of a human resources, or in which area the person having some skill lacunas, first it identifies, and after it plans to provide, or after it plans to develop a suitable training program for the human resources. So generally we can say that identification of training needs means it is a process that involves establishing areas where employees lack skills and knowledge. Means in first step, the organization identifies where the person, in which area the person having some skill lacunas or some deficiencies of knowledge. By identifying these area, organization plan for fulfilling these things through training. So identification of training needs is very important and very difficult also. By adopting one of the method from 4 methods, the organization or the trainer can able to identify the training requirements of a human resources. So there are 4 methods of identification of training needs. That is views of line manager, performance appraisal, company and departmental plans, views of training manager. So these are the 4 methods. By adopting one of the method, the trainer or the organization can able to identify the person's skill deficiencies and skill lacunas. Let me discuss all the methods in detail. First one is the views of line manager. Line manager at the departmental head, and departmental head having the full authority to control one section or one department. So the person having, means the departmental person having the ideas related to the related to his or her department's department's person's performance. So the person or the departmental head can able to identify the person's skill lacunas, the person's skill deficiencies, and accordingly he suggests the HR department to fulfill the person's skills, the person's deficiencies in his or her department. So by considering the views of line manager, the organization can, other the HR department can able to identify the training needs for human resources. And after that, the performance appraisal is another method for identification of training needs also. So you know well what is the meaning of performance appraisal. Performance appraisal, we can say it is a process of evaluating the person's performance in a systematic manner. So in performance appraisal, what the organization will do, generally the organization sets standards for every human resources, and after that the standard is communicated to the human resources, and at last the organization measure the actual performance of the human resources, and at last the organization compare the actual performance with the standard one, so that the organization able to identify the person's skill deficiencies and skill lacunas. If the person are not able to meet the standards, or if the person are below the standard level, then organization considers that the person having some skill deficiencies, some skill lacunas. So for that reason, organization arrange some training program for that human resources. Next one is the company and departmental plans. So by analyzing or by reviewing the departmental plan and the company's strategies, organization also plan for training plan for arranging training program for the human resources in near future. If the organization adopt various strategies to meet the organizational requirement, or if the organization implement new technology to meet the global challenges, at that situation also organization requires to provide some training to the human resources to well to accommodate the human resources well with the latest things. Next one is the views of training manager. So by getting or by collecting the information, by collecting the suggestion from the training manager also, training need can be identified. So by adopting one of the method, the HR department can able to identify the training requirement of the human resources. But training need identification consists three components. Through these three pages, through these three components, the training need identification can be done. So first one is the organizational analysis, task analysis, main analysis. So in organizational analysis, what the organization will do? First, the organization identifies or the organization's plans, policies, strategies. So what strategy in near future organization will adopt, that can be analyzed in organizational analysis, so that the organization able to identify the skill required to meet the strategies the organization will adopt in near future. Next one is the task analysis. In task analysis, organization identifies what task the organization should have to perform to meet the organizational requirement, to meet the requirement of the strategy that the organization will adopt in near futures. And for performing those tasks, what skills, what knowledge, what abilities is required, that can be analyzed in task analysis. And at last, that is main analysis. In main analysis, what the organization will do? In main analysis, organization identifies the person's skills, potentialities, person's abilities to perform the particular task. If the person's having some skill like lacunas to perform the particular task, then the organization identifies or organization decides to provide some training program to the human resources. So identification of training needs can be done in three phases, that is organizational analysis and task analysis and main analysis. Later we will discuss in detail the identification of training needs. Identification of training needs is a separate topic in our second unit. Later we will discuss about identification of training needs in detail. Later we'll discuss what is organizational analysis and task analysis, main analysis in detail also. Next step in training program is setting training objective. In first stage, the organization identifies the skill deficiencies, skill lacunas of a human resources. In second step, it identifies or it sets the training objectives. So for different person, there are different training objectives. Because different person having different skill lacunas, different skill deficiencies. To fill these deficiencies, different type of training program is required. So for different person, different objectives is set by the organization. To fill the gap, to fill the deficiencies, to fill the lacunas, different objectives is set by the organization. Means in these step, the organization decides what training should have to be imparted to the human resources. Means what is the purpose of the training program, and what will imparted by the organization to the training. So for different person, there are different objectives of or there are different purposes of training. For example, when a new entrant, when a new employee appointed in an organization, for him there is a different objectives of training program. Means for him, organization plans to provide knowledge related to companies policies, policies, programs, knowledge, companies policies, programs and rules. And also organization provides various knowledge related to company's work culture, so that the person can able to cope himself herself with the organizational environment. So for him there is different objectives, the purpose of training is different. And take another example of existing human resources. If existing human resources having some skill lacunar skill deficiencies in a particular area, to fulfill these deficiencies, there is different type of requirement of providing training to the human resources. So for that employee, there is different objectives of providing training. And if the organization adopt a growth strategy or diversification strategy, whatever the strategy adopt, or whatever the new technology adopt the organization in near future for providing knowledge related to uh, these things, um, different training program is required. So for this, the training objective is different. So in second step, what the purpose of training is set, and the objective of training is set means what which area the organization should have to provide training, that is decided in second step. In third step involves designing training method. After identifying the training requirements, after setting the objectives of training, next step involves in training program, that is designing training method. So there are number of training methods available, that is on the job method. Broadly there are two type of training method, that is on the job method and off the job method. Under on the job method there are number of method, and on the under of the job method also there are number of training methods. So all the training methods cannot be applied to a single person for developing the skills, developing the knowledge, because due to the cost factor and time factor. So organization should have to decide which training method is suitable for the human resources, for a particular human resources. In third step, the organization designs a suitable training method for the human resources to develop the skills. Again, the choices of training method depends on variety of factor, like the purpose of training means what the organization want to impart for a newly appointed employee. Of the job training method is suitable because the employee doesn't have any idea related to the company's work culture, the company's rules, regulations and procedures, and the company's work procedures, and the person doesn't have any practical ideas related to tasks. So there is for that employee of the training job method is suitable. And designing training method depends upon what nature of content, relevance to the participants, and level of trainings. By depending all the things, by considering all the things, the HR departments develops a suitable training program for different human resources. Next one is the administration of training program. So after designing the training program, organization or the HR department ready to impart or ready to conduct a training program. So before conducting a training program, it is required to control some contents, like what should be the training content, types of training program, location of training, training budget, lead time. So before starting the training program, the trainer should have to consider various factors, like the should have to prepare various factors or various things like training contents. What should be the contents of the training means what thing should the trainer impart to the trainee, and types of training program, what type of program the organization will arrange. Location of training means where the training program is arranged. Next, training budget, in what cost the organization should have to conduct a training program, and for how many times the training should have to be conducted. That thing can be decided in, or that thing can be controlled in fourth step. Last one is the evaluation of training program. So in fourth step, the organization prepare everything for imparting training or providing knowledge skills to the human resources, and at last the organization evaluate the worth of training program. Means the organization collect feedback about the effect of training program. So whatever the time, whatever the money spent in training program, that is fruitful or that gives a valuable result to the organization or not, that the organization try to identify whatever the benefits, whatever the values the organization got out of conducting a training programs. So it is done immediately after the training is over. So by adopting these five steps, the trainer provides the training to a human resources. So this is all about the steps and objectives of training. This is all about today's class. Thank you.